stars, and that's who we are. We are voices. There's nothing to fear. Explode in your rear. Feel our voices.
The show is afoot. This is Ed.
This is Carl.
All right, and we are back with more Sherlock, season 3.
Now, since we're talking about season 3, I think we might as well talk about like possibly one of the biggest things is the resolution to season 2.
Yeah, it's kind of important.
Yeah, because season 2 left off on the big Sherlock cliffhanger, and if you know anything about Sherlock Holmes, you know what I'm talking about, which is the mutual self-destruction of him and Moriarty. Sorry, totally just lost my track of thought. So.
Oh, that's right. I thought you were gonna do a bit, so I'm like, oh,
no, I totally just completely blanked. I was like, no, not Mycroft. Like, all was popping in my head is Mycroft. I'm like, I don't know, Mycroft. What are you doing? But
yeah.
No, season 2 ends with him jumping off a building and supposedly dying.
And also his arch enemy. You know, in the books, it's that they struggled, they fought on this waterfall, and they both tumbled off the side, and that was the death of both of them. That was the only way that they could resolve each other's existence, was to kill each other off.
Yeah, and funny enough, that was supposed to be the final Sherlock book.
And it was, but Conan Doyle was much like Sherlock, like Star Trek. He was hounded by the fans. He was just beaten back into writing more Sherlock, and they're like, he's like, but he's dead. And he just kept, and there you go. Years later, he kept writing more, and here we are.
Yeah. So they had to try to find a clever way to bring him back. But here's the thing, and I'm kind of split on this. They literally never tell you how he does it.
Yeah, which I kind of love.
Yeah. because here's the thing for me is we had like almost a year's worth of anticipation. There was no way for that to pay off. You know, like there's no way for them to come in and say like, all right, here's what really happened, and everyone be like, oh yeah, because it's at the very opening of season 3, they do what happened, quote unquote. This is what happens, and it turns out to be all like a theory of another character, and they're doing kind of a what-if scenario. But I remember watching that, and I literally out loud say, horse shit. I was like, this is stupid as shit. I was like, this is dumb. I'm done watching it. And then like I get through it, and luckily enough, I did get through it, and I saw that it was all like people speculating and everything. The fans, Sherlock's like in character fans, were debating it, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I would have hated that.
Yeah, which I have to give them hats off for recognizing, like so many things and shows and properties have this rabid fan base and an internet communities that do speculate over shit that they love. So it's amazing that this is a community that is just so into this new real life to them, this real life hero, the hat detective, and they're all buying the stupid fucking hats and looking like absolute idiots. He's not making a dime off of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That was John's department. You let him down, John. But yeah, that they're all just they meet and they're having this little club about like what happened. Did he really die? And none of them believe it. And who's leading it? One of the guys that has always hated him the most, and I don't know his name, but he's a fucking detective.
Yeah. Worst part is I'm like, yeah, I know exactly who you are, and I don't know his name either.
I know. Well, the first show, I just thought he was a dude, because they gave him a beard. He always had like terrible haircut, and then I'm like, oh, it's a guy with a terrible haircut and a beard. I didn't realize it was the same guy, but yeah, so that was pretty fantastic opening.
Philip Anderson, by the way. Anderson
Ah,
is the character's name. I just checked it out.
yes, excellent, Anderson.
But yeah, I love the way that they actually in a way acknowledge their own fan base with this fan base in the TV show, even to the point that they have a character that writes slash fiction.
Especially that was one
I
of my
about
favorite
lost it.
moments.
Because when that happened, all I can think of is all the girls that post those like homoerotic gifs on Tumblr. You know, like the one where it's like they'll cut up scenes to make it look like, you know, like John and Sherlock are like at each other and stuff like that. You know, it's like 'cause
Yeah.
there's a big community of people that are really into that. I mean, I'm not going to judge, whatever, but just
Yeah,
strange to
yeah.
me. So not my thing.
I know. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And
Yeah.
cross that with the anime fans, and it just gets out of control
Mhm.
with who's making out with whom. Yeah, totally. I gotta say that I mentioned that this was a controversial season, at least for me.
Mhm.
And my friend that I was watching it with when it was on, when it was coming on PBS here in the States, she was a diehard fan, and she absolutely loved it. She read the books. She's like, well, it's not quite right, but I understand it's a TV show, but whatever. But overall, she loved it. She's like, well, yeah, it was awesome. What'd you think? I'm like, I think it didn't really hold up to the other two seasons. And she
Really?
thought I was an alien. No, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it,
Uh-huh.
but to me it was kind of like if Sherlock could have. It's kind of like how you feel about the Star Wars prequels, and that, man, there's so many things that could have been better. There's a lot to love. There's just a lot of stuff I feel wasn't done just true to its own world.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Do you think that like maybe the show's gotten a little too big and self-aware over the past 2 or 3 seasons? Do you think that's part of it because like the writers are going into it realizing there's a certain like checklist of stuff that they have to get into episodes to appease the fans of the past 2 seasons? Do you think that's part of it, or?
I think it is part of it. I think there's expectations in a way. Unfortunately, that usually also adds to like ramping up, like Schwarzenegger said in Last Action Hero when his character just kept coming back and like, I don't understand. How come every year it gets harder and harder to fight the bad guys? And the kid's like, well, because it's a sequel and it has to get harder. There has to be more bad guys that are harder to kill and more explosions, and you have to keep going to the hospital more often, and more of your friends have to die. He's like, I don't understand. It's not fair. And the kind of the same thing's happening here. But it's also that I summarize it as they believe their own bullshit. Okay, it doesn't make sense that. And my favorite example of this is okay. Well, there's a couple things. Now Sherlock isn't just the most amazing detective. His brother's also using him to basically be a super spy. And he's going behind enemy lines, and he's getting beat up. And as he's getting beat up, he's still giving attitude like, oh, I had everything under control. I'm like, ugh. Well, thanks a lot, Bruce Willis. Thanks. Yeah, you really look like you're in good shape. That's great. Why are you even fucking there? Why are you there at all? Why would you care? Why would you let Mycroft manipulate you or send you across whatever? Fuck that. But the biggest thing. After he gets out of Eastern Europe or Russia or whatever the hell he was, he gets his shave in like this. What was he in, like fucking Victoria 1? Mycroft's mystery plane getting taken back to England because England needs you. He's getting his shave. He's got his hair cut. He's got his like perfectly fit tight suit, looking good. And then he says, "So where is it? Where's what? Where is it?" His fucking coat. It. Not just like, Sherlock. Now Sherlock becomes a narcissist who has chosen a specific look for himself and realizes that he's got branding to worry about.
Yeah.
Where is it? Coats? I have lots of coats. So now he's got a warehouse full of coats. Because that's his branding, man. He has a bitch about a hat, but Why isn't he the co-detective?
And it also shows a strange attachment for Sherlock to show, because here's a guy that's not sentimental at all. You know, it's that is I mean, you got some good valid points on that, but I don't think any of that, especially not at the time of watching, didn't take away from the show for me. So.
Oh man, it stopped me in my tracks.
Well, I think maybe it was just because it was so short. Because because I was still kind of reeling from that whole beginning where I was like, oh god, I can't believe that was like. Then I was like, oh wait, okay. So I was still kind of reeling from that. So they got that in real quick, under the shell shock that I had after the theory of how Sherlock survives, sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of swept it all in, and then that doesn't come around again until like the very end of season 3, where they're doing kind of like, okay, now we're shipping you off again, like to be a super spy sort of stuff.
Right. And I'm thinking that was thrown. It's almost like that was thrown in at the end to justify bringing it up at the beginning, but like we're talking about this ramping up of character and plot to make it more. Not just a detective. Now he's a super guy. Now he's got this. The other biggest issue I have compared to the other seasons is, we know Moriarty was behind the first 2 seasons worth of crimes and these high stakes situations, but now there was more of a focus on the relationship between John and Sherlock versus the crimes, which is really what Sherlock should be about. So the first 2 I felt kept a good balance of character development as the plot goes along, but this one was like, oh, look how quirky, look, Sherlock's becoming human, look at these situations, crime just happened, crime, and we have quirky things, and look, there's the parents, mention of a bad guy at the end. It's really just a picture. Next episode, it's like, So I mean, I love the characters and I love the personalization, and I love the wedding. The wedding was one of the most amazing things, but the super villain of Magnuson versus Moriarty, who was always prevalent, he was just a creepy dude in the background, and then they just kind of shoved him into the 3rd episode, and we're supposed to give a shit, and he's supposed to be a threat, and the resolution at the end I also just thought was awful.
Well, I think Sherlock suffers. Like, listening to you talk about it,
Sorry.
I'm seeing a lot of parallels with how I feel about Doctor Who. Where Doctor Who has kind of become, like, especially when because I'm not going to lie, I haven't watched the last season or 2 of Doctor Who because I just got burnt out on it. I got so tired of Amy Pond because it became all about his companions and his relationship with them and why they're special and blah, blah, blah. I just want to see some guy going around time and space fighting aliens and stemming off invasions and fighting ghosts and crazy crap like that. It's like that's what I signed up for on Doctor Who, and it's kind of like what you said. Like, the earlier seasons had a good balance, like the David Tennant and the Chris Eccleston years on the reboot had a good balance of like him and his relationship with his companions and the mysteries and the adventures going on in the background. And they just kind of lost that balance. And like I would say, even the way that the wedding, where they break it up over a couple different small crimes and stuff like that, and like them doing the investigations and things, like even that was kind of like, oh well, these are all secondary because these are all things just to push along this personal plot.
Yeah.
So, but I did love it though. Like, that's the funny thing. Like, saying that about that whole wedding scene and the speech and the toast and everything.
Oh my God! It was
It was. If I had another couple seasons of it, I'd probably be tired of it. But since they put it in there that once, like, I'll let it slide. But it was really kind of self-indulgent as far as like character. It's like the stories were more about John and Sherlock's interactions than it was the actual crimes. Even to the point where, like, no, I never solved it. I don't know. It's like when people were like, so what happens? What happens? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. Now the personal part of the writing, I'm not going to shit on it because, like I said, I totally love the wedding thing. Balance is my biggest complaint. You know, super spy Sherlock doing crazy shit. That's a bitch. But oh my God, yes, his speech being both uncomfortable and so at the same time so touching that like I was getting verklempt. Even watching it again, I'm like, oh, I wish somebody said that about me because. Coming from this cold, you know, self-described high-functioning sociopath who just doesn't give a shit about, and he recognized first, you know, it's like I don't recognize things like love and compassion. And this girl next to me is like, I don't understand beauty. I don't know what the appeal is. But then goes into like what it really means to his life. I'm like, got me right there.
It means he's really attached to his coat.
That's right. John Watson is his personal euphemism for his coat.
That's right. So join us tomorrow for part 3, Sherlock's coat.
Absolutely, we'll be here talking coats. And, you know, between now and then, feel free to hang out with us over on Facebook. We have a very active community, the VOR group, Voice of the Republic. And if you have a hard time tracking us down, you can go to www.vorradio.com. We have links to everything we do. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can get a link to the iTunes version, and if you'd rather see our gorgeous faces, and some of them are sick faces, so I apologize for this cold. Yeah, well, you can check us out on YouTube, and please do subscribe either way. But you know what? We'd love to hear from you. We listen to your voicemails and your opinions. I mean, it's only fair you listen to us. So you can send us an email at voiceofrep@gmail.com, and feel free to attach an MP3 if you want to do your voicemail that way. But you know, don't throw any music in there. That helps us out. Or you can just give us a call on the Republicom. That's our voicemail service, and that is 407-409-8749. 2-minute limit, and same thing. Just try not to use any music, but swear all you want. That's how we do.
Fuck yeah!
Fuck yeah! Bollocks in the spirit of Sherlock. All right, man. Well, that's what we got for today. And it looks like, actually, okay. Well, we're gonna talk about the coat, but we're also gonna talk about the women.
Ladies.
Oh. That's my impression of
a lady.
Of a lady. That's a lady sound like to me. I don't care what you're saying.
They sound like disappointment.
It's not orgasmic. It's just disappointment. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. May the force
be with
that ass.